Are you hiring the right people before you open? How do you keep those people after you open? And then after a month or so, how do you then handle your labor costs? So if one of you wants to volunteer to start about any best practices or what you've gone through and what advice you can give them, and just jump in.
I'll start. For me, so I'm not in the store every day, but Ron, who you guys have seen around here, is a friend. I met him in law school years ago, and guy I trust. So my first act was to get him involved as my general manager, but I'm not a passive owner either. I'm very active, and I look at my camera like every day, every second. So, but in terms of finding people, it started with him. Our assistant manager was our next hire. We knew that we wanted somebody that could lead even if we weren't around. And I'm a bit of a geek, so I created this spreadsheet, like a hire matrix, and I showed it to a couple folks here this weekend. And really what I did there was took kind of the subjective thoughts that we all have about what we want and tried to turn it into objective. And so I weighted a bunch of subjective things. So, for example, personality or work ethic or things like that, reliability, experience, all those things, and kind of weighted them accordingly out of a scale of 100. And when we interviewed, we tried to get those things answered. And in the end, the guy that got hired was the guy that had the highest score. So systems seemed to be working amongst three of us that were interviewing. And I thought that was a really good system that I like. Still perfecting it, still trying to make it better, but something that definitely worked for us to get good talent, initially.
Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, there was some buzz because of our social media and the fact that we were coming to Pittsburgh. So we kind of used that as our way to recruit, and used the Facebook page, and then used some Indeed. Found a manager. I think you're right. I think hiring a manager up front was a critical piece of that because you need the help. We hosted 2 hiring events and really used the social media to post that we had a buzz. We had a great turnout. After those 2 events, we hired the people that we needed to hire. We were able to be somewhat selective because we were looking for personality, work ethic, those kinds of things, and tried to assess that as best as you could in a very short period of time. So kind of use those things to your advantage if you can. Get a good manager.
Was part of your hiring event, or did you?
No, we
like
hired him
separate?
prior to the
Okay.
event, and then he was involved with the actual events, which was helpful.
Just want to add something on one of the other parts of the question was based on controlling labor costs. You all see that your first couple of weeks you will be overstaffed as people learn to become more efficient at their job. At the end of every day, you run your flash report and your 2 cash register reports. One of the things that I got in the habit of running too was my hourly sales numbers, which also includes percent of labor by hour, because when we started we had the morning shift that was 6:30 to 2, and then we had the afternoon shift that was 2 to whatever. But once you start digging into those numbers, I realized I was swamped Sunday mornings, but people were sleeping in and we weren't busy at 6:30. But from the hours of, I'd say, 9 to 12, on an average Sunday I sell about 140 breakfast sandwiches. So I would need 2 back of house, but I didn't need them from 6:30. So being a little bit more flexible with my shifts and having some staggered shifts and really looking in down to the hour. So I take all my Sundays and once I had those reports and kind of spreadsheet those and look to see if those trends were holding true, and not just being as generic as a 6 to 2 shift on whatever day it is.
Does anyone have any specific questions? Because you're welcome to. Yes.
The question, when you're looking at your more successful managers, other than like the subjective experience, like the work ethic, what has been their prior work experience? Are they coming out of similar shops, or what are you seeing as being the most successful manager? Where are they coming from?
Anyone?
I'd like to throw a caveat in with hiring the manager. We have a unique business that it's not a McDonald's, it's not Burger King, it's not Taco Bell. We have recipes, but you don't pull things out of a freezer and dump them in the fryer and things like that. And nobody's ever going to care as much as the owner does. So I think when we hire a manager, I think we have to go into that knowing that we can't rely on them right away. I think the owner has to be there, at least from our perspective, every day in the trenches, you know, kind of like the speaker was saying, you're working side by side with them. So I guess when we hired our manager, it really wasn't, we didn't have the thought process in mind that this is going to be our long-term go-to person. It's just going to be our wingman for a little while until we kind of figure some things out on our own. So for us, I think just our stores are very high touch. I think you have to be very engaged with it. And I'm not quite sure we could really just leave it up to the manager to lead the ship, because we're still learning as we go along too. So for me, that's, I guess it's important to say that. So, I don't know, this is our first manager's probably not gonna last real long, not gonna be the extended manager. Now, you hired a very good friend, right? You knew what you were getting.
Yeah, I
It was
mean-
very unique.
You know, so I went with the GM first, but we went into it with 2 stores, you know, so I knew that right away we'd probably be looking at a whole nother staff, so we really need to get some leadership established pretty quickly. To answer your question, the guy that we ended up hiring, he worked at Krispy Kreme before, so he was an assistant general manager, you know, at those locations there, and he has a donut tattooed on his leg. Like.
And this is not Ron. This is
No, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. Don't ask him to pull his pant leg.
Well, my situation is a little unique because when I was the first franchise, so literally the guidance I was given was, you need to hire about 6 to 8 people.
It's a little different now.
Yeah, so things are much different now, a lot more streamlined, a lot more better organized. But my manager actually has been with me since I opened. She, about 6-8 months ago, took another opportunity, but stayed with me on the weekends until I think I saw Zach in here, and Zach just stole her from me. She's moving to Savannah, which is awesome for her. She's a great girl. But so I don't really have a lot of experience. Like she started with me as just an employee. I didn't hire a manager because I was there full time, and then she just kind of got groomed into that role, and she's amazing. So Zach got a winner.
I think to maybe touch on just having done, open a store, what y'all are doing exactly a year ago from right now. I got different guidance, right? Not 6 to 8 people. It was more than that, 35, 40, something like that. And then the same question I kind of asked myself was, well, what type of, background should this person have? Do they need donut experience, and what are we working with? Those things are all subjective to who you are as a leader, right? And to your area and to the needs of your business. But you can't forget to look at the fact that, one, we're dealing with an unskilled work crew, so these guys don't go to college to develop the ability to make a donut or to lead systems. You don't need a college degree to do a line check. So really, it's not their background that you want to look at, but their behavior, because past behavior dictates future, so that's what you look at. So don't limit yourself to the people that, you've had 5 years of leadership experience, great. Someone that's had 1 year is equally as great. I even have someone who's literally leading my business and being probably one of the most proactive people I've ever met, whose 2 brothers are engineers, and he was the, not the deadbeat brother, but he was just the brother that tried a couple different things, and it's not that they didn't work out and he got fired, it just was like, this isn't it for me. And it may not be it for him for 5 years, but it might be it for him for 2 years, right? So in thinking about when you're looking for people, don't get locked into, I got to start hiring at this many weeks out, or I got to wait till this many weeks in. Do what you know is best in your area. It's best to find about 5 times as many applicants as you think you need to hire. So if you're thinking you need 40 team members, you need to be pursuing about 200 applicants, because the obstacles that you've got to put in to go ahead and subjectively and objectively dwindle those numbers down should really get you to a place where you find the best team members who are their best, and they're not better than the other team members or better than the other applicants. They're literally the best that you can find. So whatever system you put in, one, start doing it before you think it's time to do it. So don't wait till 6 weeks before you open to start looking for your manager, as I did. Don't hire less than 40 people if you're opening in any way that you think you're going to do really well. Don't lock yourself into one mindset of what you're looking for, and do have some type of easy applicant system. It sounds like this gentleman, Michael Jordan, Forgot your
Oh,
name.
no, I'm not Michael.
I know. What is
Oh,
your
no,
name?
I'm not Michael.
I know. What is your name? And I know who Michael Jordan is. I wore number 23 for 10 years playing basketball. But just like whatever it is, make it easy. Like make your system easy, but don't go the route where all you do is open interviews, because you're just going to have a mass amount of people come in. Your brain's going to be confused, and then you're going to start comparing. Well, at least Johnny was better than Tom, right? But that's not what you want. You literally want to see, is their past behavior dictating something in the future that's going to make them do their best every day and care almost as much as the owner? That can happen, but maybe not ever quite as much as the owner, like this gentleman's saying. So just do things before you think it's time to do them, and have those ideas in mind, and create some type of smooth operation that naturally weeds people out without you having to go, okay, well, this person's been a year at Krispy Kreme and this person was fired from their job. Like, I mean, you can easily weed things out like that if you have some type of applicant system that's easy and is effective.
I came from the HR consulting and talent management business for 20-some years, so I've always been a big believer in behavioral interviewing. So even if it's an hourly employee, asking them a couple questions around how would you handle this, and give them a scenario that you think would happen in your business, and see how they respond, or how have you handled this situation in the past, whether it's school, whether it's previous job, whatever it is. You know, get a feel for what their it gives you a lot. It gives you their personality, it gives you their work ethic. A lot of those things come through with those kinds of questions too.
And in that situation, it's really in the interview process, and this seems so ridiculous. I know we have so many more important things to think about, like, well, how do you even make a donut? Like that type of thing, or my gosh, am I gonna have 18% profitability each month? Like all those things are big and important, but like, was that guy's name John with the hotel group?
Yes.
Like he was saying, I mean, these people are our customers. That does not mean that you don't correct and discipline and have standards and policies in place, but they're your customer. So pay attention to them in the interview process. Like that should be the most important thing to you, because that runs your whole business. It runs everything. It runs your future. So the questions, the open-ended questions are big. The yes, no, don't even go there, right? I mean, how many of us have been in an interview, they're like, will you be nice to the guest? Well, of course. I mean, I'm not going to say anything else here. So the open-ended, the words tell me really prompt something big, right, coming out of people. So tell me about yourself, or so tell me about that situation, or they're like, yeah, I have a brother. Oh, tell me about your brother. Like, and then don't listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they're not saying, or listen to how they say it, or you're just analyzing their behavior overall. But you don't really want to focus so much on what you're hearing, but what you're either not hearing, or what you see happening. That is so important. That interviewing piece.
I was curious what your experience is with adult employees versus younger employees, because I know like day shift near me I think is going to be very busy, and I think that the type of employee I'm probably going to be seeing more is going to be the adult employee. Do you guys have that for your daytime shifts, or?
Maybe I'm 10 months in, so what have you seen?
In my experience, older employees seem to, I hope nobody gets mad at me for saying this, they move a little slower than, the
Yeah.
teenagers.
I'm offended.
But-
And I'm deaf. It's gonna be perfect.
No, but I like to have a very good mix of people on a shift, because I tend to find that the older people obviously are more mature, and even if they're not in a leadership role, they take a more mature approach, and the younger people tend to act a lot better when it's an older person on the shift versus an all young staff. Because I have a young team leader, he's 18, and I oftentimes think that he probably has too much responsibility for himself, for his age. And he only manages, a shift at a time, but the young people too are not vested in your interest as much as somebody who's been around the block a little bit. That's my opinion.
And that's a pro and a con. The pro is that we are in a position where we can hire young kids, right? I have a couple 14-year-olds, and these 14-year-olds are very mature. You can tell the backgrounds they come from and whatnot. But when these kids get behind that glass wall, that donut making wall, they think they're invisible. right? Like the guests can't see that. So you have to walk down like, guys, settle down. You know, I'm all about having fun, but it's not a playground. This is a romper room. So to your point, having that older person there, that seems to be a nice buffer. You know, when I inject Lori there, who's kind of slow and boring, but very methodical and responsible, they don't have as much fun when Lori's there. That's okay. But they get behind that glass wall and they think they're invisible. So again, the customers are hearing you giggle like children. So let's, you know, cool it.
Oh, man. We hire 14 and 15-year-olds as well, and so I've got a separate philosophy on that, but I'm sure y'all can't imagine that. But I do. I'm a school teacher. How can I help it? The whole hiring adults versus like how do you find the balance when you are hiring? I make availability a huge part of the conversation. I'm sure most people do, but sometimes you don't think of it until later. So I mean, this is not a Burger King or a Subway. Like, how can I make this the perfect employment for myself from the employee standpoint? That's not what it is, right? So you are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, and you make sure that they're a fit. Right? Age, availability. Go ahead and ask those hard questions. We talk about all the expectations up front. They read the handbook about 3 times, you know, supposedly, before we even hire them, so they know what to expect. And on Duck Donuts Corporate's website, I would suggest having, it's up to you, but suggest having a link that just allows people to apply. Unless you have a specific idea in mind of how you're going to grow your company, it's best to just funnel everyone through the same thing so they don't come in with an expectation of, oh, I'm going to be a team leader, unless you really do need that. Or I'm going to just be a donut maker. Like, nope, just team members needed, right? So that's something. And then as well, whoever you do hire in the business, whether you get to be the people that are in the business or if you're the person that's kind of floating above, whoever's your main lead, or in my case, I've got a team of 2 directors that run the store, mentoring has to be one of their best skill sets, because just because that 14-year-old kid is going to giggle and probably scratch their hair and then go to pick up the donut, right? They didn't know that. And so it's best to have the perspective of educating versus berating, right? So you want to teach them, because how many of us were the 14-year-old giggling idiots behind the invisible wall, right? I'm just suggesting. I was that person. So someone taught me somewhere along the way. This is something you don't do. This is something you do. So mentoring is a big piece, no matter who you hire or how you go about your hiring process. Mentoring is huge. And most of the time, if someone's not doing something right, they're either not the right fit for your company, or you haven't handled them correctly, and typically that goes back to mentoring.
Next question, how many of you use the ServSafe food handler course? Have you sent employees to that?
I have.
You have it, can you have a group where they come in and take the whole group one evening or Sunday night or something?
Well, it just so happens that I'm in a center with Jersey Mike's. The owner is also a teacher, so I just send my people through him, and it works out really well. But when I went through it, I had to, I lived in Williamsburg. I had to drive to, I think it was Virginia Beach or something, and sit in a classroom like this all day.
What state are you in?
I'm in North Carolina, and when I took the course, I drove up to Raleigh, which was about 45 minutes away, and went to a guy's house. He put it on in 4 hours and then administered the test online. My wife thought we could do it online, so she studied, she did the online part and then realized she had to have a proctor, so she'd gone to his house for the test ahead of me. And was impressed with him, he was very nice. But the problem was, ServSafe changed their entire curriculum middle of the summer. She was looking at the old material, and 50% of it wasn't on it. Of course, she's sneaky smart, and she passed it because she could figure it out, because most of it's common sense anyway, except for knowing the exact image. But I was wondering if you do bring them in, or, I mean, you could surely hire one of those guys to come.
Yeah, a good spot to look if you have one in your community is like a culinary school. We've got 3 younger women on staff who graduated from culinary school, like Philadelphia Culinary School. They're very employable because a lot of them come out and they can't get what they want, and they kind of jump around a little bit. And the 2 that we have are doing really well because they went to culinary school for baking, right? Although my 16-year-old daughter can make this donut and does at times. But they feel important, and so try and find like their job website and try and see if there's a culinary school, like a baking division, and just kind of throw an email out there, find the head administrator, whatever it is, and we've gotten 2 from the Philadelphia Culinary School. You would think that they're way out of our league, so to speak, but they're not. Some people who are like doing the baking, they're looking for a job, they're looking for experience. and they're looking to learn a little bit more about the small business. So we've got 2 from there, which was, they're pretty good.
What levels, what positions are they in?
Jack of all trades. I mean, we'd like to think that everybody knows how to do everything, because when you start to pare down the staff, everybody does need to know how to do everything. But I would have thought those folks would have been out of our league, culinary school, but come to find out they really enjoy it. Sometimes they get a little too creative with the toppings, want to do their own thing and drive up cost of goods, but I'll take that problem.
Just to kind of jump off of that real quick, Todd, when you're hiring, you really need to be looking at personality. There's 4 main positions in the store. Sometimes we add on busy weekends for someone in the lobby and whatnot, but that's the key right there. We can teach them how to make a donut, how to top a donut, how to wash dishes, but you guys really need to be focused on how they are interviewing, making eye contact, having a fluent conversation with you all, and I think that really adds to your staff and just the success of your store, so keep that in mind.
To that point too, when we interviewed, the way we interviewed our managers was totally different than the way we interviewed the rest of the staff. Ron had a question that he asked that was hilarious, but it was great. He said, "Can you quack like a duck?" Like, he literally asked them that, and if they didn't do it, we asked them. Because, it was an indication that they thought they were too cool. We didn't want people that were too cool. We wanted people that have great personality.
It is kind of like a flip-flop situation for your manager, because anyone could be anyone on a piece of paper. And for the 20-minute interview, you're sitting down with them, they can be whoever they want to be, right? And I really suggest having a follow-up interview, maybe in different settings, maybe having other people interview them for you, having us, I've gotten on the phone for Andy's manager, talking to managers, so, utilize us as some tools in that process. But until managers get operational, you really don't know how invested they are or what kind of responsibility they're going to take when it comes to ownership for your store. So it's definitely a process, but definitely get on it and, really look for that right person, because that's essential to getting off on the right foot. Unfortunately, Mechanicsburg didn't have that luxury of getting off the right foot with the right manager, and we're still coming back to that. So, it does make a huge world of a difference if you get the right person from the get-go.
Structure-wise hiring, we held like open houses Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we chose different time slots for people to come to, so we basically just booked a couple conference rooms that were down the street from our center, because obviously your store's under construction, so it's probably hard to interview in the store. So we just booked a conference room, and we did that for 2 weeks in a row, 3 days a week, and chose different time slots to be able to accommodate different people coming in. And other than the managers or shift leads, we were hiring people on the spot, and that was based on personality. We came out of the gate with 47 people. Well, 40 of those we hired right on the spot. The first round, we were trying to be a little more methodical with the questions, and we realized, this is taking too much time to get a group of 40 to 50 kids together, or young people together. But I would say kind of set your structure, maybe do like three days a week for 2 weeks, and do some open interviews from Indeed and those kinds of things. That kind of helped us. Instead of dragging it out, and I got to make email up the paperwork and all that stuff. I'm a sales guy. I'm not a detail guy. Like what Andre does would drive me batshit crazy.
Or we DDU partners, right?
Yeah, I'm a gut guy. So, and to that point, everybody's gonna be a little bit different. Your market's a little bit different, your hiring style's a little bit different. But I found that structure of the open interviews 3 times a week, different times for 2 weeks in a row, really helped us. Probably the most important thing that I could say that helped us is, and this is hard because we're so anxious to get up and running and making money, because all we're doing is writing checks. I'd say slow down before you speed up. So we took a week after we hired everybody. We made the team part of the cleaning process, peeling the labels off, organizing the store to make them part of everything from the get-go. And that was hard. It's hard for me, the guy cutting the checks, but my wife convinced me to do that. She said, I want to take 1 more week. We're going to take 6 more days, and we're going to get this damn thing right. We're going to have 2 team meetings, and we're going to get everybody well-trained so we're not running around with our hair on fire. I know that's tough. You want to get that first $25,000, $30,000 week under your belt, but I think for us, that really helped us be organized. And when I talked with Marissa and Zaina, their thought process on the opening was yours went smooth. That was a good experience for us. You guys you felt like you were already there. It's difficult because it's a money thing, but get everybody hired and don't try and open up that next day. Slow down before you speed up. And I felt we were so much more prepared when we opened up on a Friday. And that first week, we just did limited hours. We did 8 to 5. because you're still trying to figure out what's going on. We're only in month 4, right? So you get better every single day. That's what I keep telling the team, that every day we get a little bit better. Focus on doing all the small things big, because you got a lot of like young kids, so we talk about all the small things and what's important there. But those extra handful of days really helped us just get more prepared. And I think being open 8 to 5 that first week on the advice of Zana, against my original wishes, I just want to come out and let's rock and roll. But that really helped us. That store takes, that first few weeks, it takes 3 hours to close that darn thing down. It is a messy business, in those first months. Until you get better and better, it's just, actually just slow down before you speed up that first week, and that really helped us. And I just felt we were so much more prepared instead of just coming out of the gate, trying to open up that door as soon as those contractors left. I think it's just my opinion, and it's hard because it's a money thing, but.
Let's switch to that topic actually. So as you guys know, and anyone else who has currently opened, it's super chaotic prior that first weekend, and then a few weeks thereafter you probably lost sleep and all kinds of things and wanted to punch us in the face as well as many others. So how did you handle that, and what type of tips and best practices would you give these new owners that are going to go into that chaotic mix very soon? Aside from the staff. Anyone want to share?
The silence says everything.
For,
Can't talk about it, can't
In hindsight, it's something, Russ said something yesterday when he talked about, the cockroaches on the wall, and I think that was a valuable learning experience, those first couple weeks. I don't know that you can prepare that much for it, other than to know that it's going to be busy. In some markets, it may vary, but it's going to be busy. You're going to have people that don't know what they're doing, working side by side. They don't know the job. You prepare them, as you said, we do as much as you can in advance to prepare them. It's going to be fast-paced, it's going to be, but I think it builds the character, it did for me, of what we were doing, but I think it did for a lot of the team members as well, to just kind of live through that and adjust the best that you can, try to get some sleep, but it's, in the end, it will come through, it'll work out.
One thing that I say we, but my wife did, was like 2 weeks prior to opening, when, before training and stuff like that, she did stuff like, she made taco meat and she froze it, and she made stuff for hamburger barbecue and she froze it. So that opening weekend, when it's literally that crazy, she got bags of Fritos and had walking tacos. So, sometimes you try to do your best to give people the proper breaks, but just little things like that showed that we did care about them, and we certainly couldn't have done that in the heat of the moment. So the fact that we prepared for that early. Another thing that I think was important for us is it was very apparent in training that a couple people that interviewed well and stuff, they just weren't going to work out. And the longer that you keep them, they just bring down the whole team. So as soon as you can recognize that, it just brings everyone down. Why am I busting my butt? Because at the beginning you have 2 people working the donut fryer because they're not efficient yet. And what I was seeing is one person was working the butt off, and the other one was standing there watching them. So made those hard decisions, and they're kids, they get over it. Hopefully make a learning experience out of it and just move on.
So I think I opened most recent, so I'm the most traumatized. But I think at the end of the day, don't forget why you got into this thing, right? I tell everybody, what's your story? Why'd you get a duck? I said, I bit a chocolate frosted donut. It's that simple. And in the beginning, I was like, what? This is gonna be something. And I know it's long term. Don't forget it's long term. It's not short term. Did we get out the gates the way I wanted? No, not at all. I wanted to be much bigger than that, but I know it's coming, and we're just gonna prepare for it. While we got time to get better, that's what we'll do. We'll get better, and we'll keep perfecting, and we'll keep learning. And I love this conference because I got to talk to a lot of people about their experiences. So, but the other thing, more practical, is I think get a great contractor, man. My contractor, I'm thankful because I think Justin called me. He said, hey, this guy wants to bid on your project, and he just did the Alpharetta store. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. You know, even better, he should already know Duck. And we had a couple people we were talking to already. But we threw him in the mix too, and by far and away, he just blew everybody away. And he was so good, I think he just made my life that much better. You know, seriously, I mean, I don't know how we would have done it without him. And, you know, we're looking at a second store that we're gonna start on pretty soon here too. And I just feel great going into it, because I know I got the right guy. So that's really important. Like, take time on that front end with that contractor, because they'll make or break you for sure. And they need to know that jurisdiction, because that will make all the difference in the world too.
I want to ask all of you, were any of you able to attend another store opening? Raise your hand. Can you all speak to that experience and if you thought that was beneficial?
That's like DDU on steroids. Because my wife and I went to Todd Biddleman's, I call him T-Bitty, his store in Lancaster, and we worked there for 2 weeks. We opened it and we closed it. And that was mentally, we felt like we were like well-trained. Before even Zana came in, we felt like we were there. And we got that. You know, contracting slows down. You go to DDU in March, but you don't open up. You know, you're at the mercy of all the stuff, right? Township officials and that stuff. But I would strongly suggest just taking a week of your life and going to work in somebody's store and open and close and spend some time there. That really helped us.
And if you hire them in time, send the managers do the same. That'll change your life, and you'll actually be able to sleep within the first 2 weeks.
And we were able to do it for both. Our GM, Ron, he went to multiple store openings. And then our assistant manager that we thought was good, we sent him to Asheville. You know, so he got to see that firsthand before we went into our training. So, yeah, that's that.
One thing we could probably do a little bit better is we hired shift leads. We have really 3 great ones, but they all want to work the same damn shift. Right? And that's a very expensive proposition when I've got 3 of them. So it's harder to get the shift lead who wants to close the store. So I think as you're going through your mind with the shift leads, make sure that you're talking to them about the schedule, being the closer or the opener. Now, fortunately, we haven't been in that store at 5:30 in the morning in a few months, because we have a couple who love their morning people. So we're kind of rooming the 3rd one into this last one we hired. They're now at nighttime. But you know, if you find 2 that are really big morning people, then they've got your store covered. But we struggled with finding that 3rd one who was, you know, they're more of an evening person. So as you take a look at the shift leads, just make sure that you're identifying 1 or 2 that can work, you know, those closing.
Becky, you had a question?
Yes, so I know a lot of us, because we went to DD together too, and I don't know, maybe just one on the panel has gone through this, but my anxiety is the holidays quickly approaching. And so those of you that haven't gone through the holidays that are on the panel, what are your thought processes about coverage of Thanksgiving and the month of December? Because a lot of our team, I have a Dynamite team staff, but there are a lot of college kids. So they're gonna take off the whole month of December and go home, rightfully so, but our store's still gonna be open 7 days a week during the month of the holidays. So if you could maybe share, like maybe your thought process as you're planning the approaching holidays and hiring and staff.
I mean, off the bat, if you are gonna have staff that's available to you, you know, sometimes it goes over a lot better for them, wanting to be there for you if you give them the option. Well, you know, making a priority, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day, which one they would rather have off, you know, so they can sign up, and then you can delegate based on what their preferences are. Now, it's not set in stone, you're gonna need who you need, but allows them to have a little bit control over the situation. So I suggest you do something like that.
Becky, we're just letting the shift leads handle that, like get far out in front of it. So you guys build the schedule, talk to the team now, see who needs off, and you guys come up with it. Between the 3 of you, figure out who's gonna cover what, and then let us know, let Gail know where you guys need us, because we plan on being there a lot too.
Right.
But it's just really just trying to get out in front of it now. You know, don't send us a note, you know, a week before us and hand Christmas off. So just trying to get out, I guess get out as far in front of it as possible is what, you know, I could really advise, right? Just figure out what's on people's minds and when they need off. Our shift leads, we tell them how many hours they're allowed to have for the week. So you have 120 hours to work with, or you have this to work with, and build your schedule around that. You know, so once you turn the schedule over to the shift leads, all of a sudden that payroll gets wacky, right? Because they want more, and more isn't always better when it comes to staffing. So I think sometimes give the shift leads, here's the amount of hours you have to work with and schedule in it, and then let them figure that stuff out.
We have all this written down in our handbook, so that way almost everything is already an expectation for them. So they're capped at how many shifts they can request off for the year. And also what Marissa's talking about, you know, you can have either Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's off. And then if you want to request two, well, you'll be the last one considered. And we set a cap also on the daily request off. And that doesn't fly well all the time, but when I say it doesn't fly well, people get upset. Oh, I forgot to ask off, or oh, I really need this off. But it's an expectation from the beginning, and that's a lot easier platform to start from than, all right, guys, the holidays are coming up. Here's our new expectations. Like, everyone already knows it. They signed the handbook. They've read it several times, so it's a lot easier position to start from.
Becky, we are giving like a stipend of $50 for that day. You know, somebody who wants to work like that.
Right.
The day after Thanksgiving, just give them an extra $50. Knowing that we're only going to have some of the better ones in there, just give them $50 for the day, and that has tended to really just kind of fill that.
That's usually what I do, and I
That's
usually
crazy.
make some kind of meal that day too, for kind of like the,
Make it a celebration in a way.
like I usually do a breakfast casserole or something to reward them for being.
Todd, I'll work for $50.
Not the first time you said that. We have a love-love relationship.
All right, you have a question?
I have a question, going back to like leading up to your opening. So you mentioned like the modified hours. I wanted to know if there's any other like tips or things that people have done, like soft openings, like for friends and family, so that the team members kind of walk through the process prior to opening. Was that successful? Or?
We did one of those. So we did the friends and family on Friday, and then we basically opened up the friends and family. My wife and I are transplants in Pennsylvania, so we really don't have family there. Fortunately for her, we have friends. So what we did, we extended that to all of our staff. So I said we hired 47 people, so we really encouraged them to push it to their friends and family. I think our friends and family, we might have had 350, 400 people. And we didn't
You had a lot of walking traffic that we
Right.
were just allowing people in,
Yeah.
and you did something a little different that not all franchisees do. You know, you have the option of coming up with your own discount or giveaway, and some people do a free coffee and a free donut. Todd just did 20% off across the board, and you had a $2,500 night that night,
So it
didn't
was
you?
like $2,700.
Yeah, so I mean, use it to your benefit as well. You know, no, it's nice to give like freebies and giveaways, but at the same time, if you're discounting it, you know, you're still putting money in your pocket to cover that.
And your friends don't. If they're really good friends, they don't expect to come there to support you and give free stuff.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's what we struggle with. What do we give away? Like, we're asking the people to come in. I just found it easier. We went 20% across the board, and
Then you're able to open it up too to try to get more traffic.
yeah, we didn't turn anybody
Staff
away. You know, we're in a town
Fair.
center, so there's a lot of foot traffic. So there are people there. I didn't know if they were friends or family or whatever. But yeah, we gave them 20% off. People just came in. We didn't try to differentiate who was a friend or
Right.
family. We did 20% off.
And Terry, our on-site, when we come on site, the training's Monday through Thursday, and that Thursday is intended for staff to almost, it's like their practice run before we would open. So it is part of the schedule that week.
And we can work with you guys individually on what works best in your area too. Do you have a ton of friends and family and you want to invite the Chamber of Commerce and give away free coffee and donuts and then discount or sell full price dozens and things like that? Would you rather just do a 20% or something across the board? Do you want flyers to pass around to town? Do you maybe want to add flyers with a coupon? So we can work individually based on your structure and community. But the main goal is to definitely get people into your store that night so your staff can understand that chaos and that flow and kind of work out the kinks before you guys open your doors the next morning.
That's probably the first night you need to set strategy around how you're going to handle tips. And so the friends and family, I think there was like $700-800 in that fish bowl. And at that point in time, we made the decision that we're going to pull out 50 for each shift lead. Then basically we just have a spreadsheet with all the employees' names, the amount of hours in that pay period, and then we just base the amount of hours you work. We distribute tips every 2 weeks. Me, I don't want to play with the money that much with the tips, so we just kind of put it in the safe and just let it go for a couple weeks, and just plug your hours in, and that tells you how much of the tips that you're going to get. And the tips get counted out every night with the daily sales report. So they just get marked down at the bottom of the paper. So they're kind of subject to somebody kind of getting their hands on that bag if they happen to have your same combination.
How does everyone else handle tips in your store?
Just like that.
Same way?
We do it daily. Sometimes, there have been times when my evening shift is really slow, like especially in like September and January, February. The morning shift really pushes to have them divided at shift change because it's not fair that they've worked super hard and then they've, you know. But I mean, sometimes I've allowed that because I get they're part of it. But the other thing is the closing shift is also working hard, closing the store down. You know, even though we make them hand it over in a decent condition. So I will listen to them, but usually I just do it per day, and then I divide up kind of. I mean, I don't have a spreadsheet or anything, but I just kind of say, yeah, and then also if they've worked extra hard, like if I notice I have a harder worker, if there's an extra round, they usually get that. It's very subjective. Divide it out.
We pay the Friday between payroll, so they get a little bit of something that Friday between payroll, so they get cash. We don't run the tips through the payroll. That's just cash. And some franchisees run them through the payroll, and I think it kind of takes the joy out of getting that cash. But so we pay the Friday, the tips are the Friday in between the payroll, so at least you're getting a little bit of something every Friday. Sometimes it's not much.
So you
Some
don't do them
employees are
daily?
getting-
You don't distribute them daily?
No, we just do it every 2 weeks.
Yeah, we do that too.
And just do it that way.
So we don't do tips, just for, different reasons, but
Yes.
we take our coupons and we do business trade out with other businesses that would be willing to give us $100 worth of their coupons, and then we hand out daily rewards to our team members that way, and so they get excited, $10 at the Cheesecake Factory or a free haircut. I mean, different things they get excited about.
Yeah, I think you see we all kind of do a little bit different. It's almost like what works for you. But you almost kind of have to set at least that tip strategy, because everybody wants to know, what are we doing with the tips? Right? They're looking at that big jar there. And we just kind of set it from the get-go that we're going to do this every 2 weeks based on the amount of hours you work and shift leads. We didn't tell the rest of the staff. We actually pull out $50 per shift lead. We just give it to them. So,
What about withholding on something like that?
I'm sorry?
Withholding?
I don't worry about it.
Not my problem.
Not my problem.
They're legally supposed to report it themselves, so that's not necessarily on these guys.
All right, we only have a couple more minutes, so let's just shift to one more topic quickly, and then you guys can go get lunch. So I know a hot topic for many of you guys that are going through the opening process or who have opened very recently is cash flow. So does anyone want to share just kind of their tips and tricks and best practices on how to manage cash flow as you're getting, your tons of construction bills and equipment bills, and then, your first inventory levels, and then a few weeks thereafter, how you're kind of managing it in your system and handling? I know it's probably a tough one, but. Do you
Well,
have
if you met my wife, cash flow is always an issue. So I'm used to dealing with that. We just injected some overage in the account in the beginning to handle that stuff. We didn't take any money out of the business for the first few months. Andy and I talked about this. We tried to get those hanging chads paid off, like the rest of your fryer and like that kind of stuff. We just did like a real small salary for Gail and just made deposits every day, made sure the money hit the bank, and just kind of, we tucked an extra maybe 20, 30 grand in there just to make sure that we weren't, paranoid about how the day was. But I think for me, it was just the expectation that we're not going to take any money from this thing for a little while.
Right.
I think Andy and I were worried about that third month or so, we finally found ourselves.
Yeah, I think that was the key, is get the short-term debt paid for, get that, number one, you have some assets, that you have in your business now that are paid off. But then you don't have the worry, and your long-term commitments you can manage, on a monthly basis. It's tough at first, but to have that done now, I think we've talked about this several times. It's a burden off of you, and you can focus on other things.
You don't want to set yourself up on a big payroll anyways, because it's self-employment tax, so you want to do more profit distributions to begin with. Obviously we all put some of our own personal money into it too, so it's really not a profit distribution, it's an owner's equity draw against your initial loan to the business. But it's a great question, but it's a hard one.
Can I ask a question about that? What is your structure? Since you have multiple stores, you have a corporate ownership of LLCs, and that feeds back to the corporation. Do you put most of your owner's equity when you're doing more than one store in the corporation, and the store is sort of on its own, paid for, whatever you want to look at it, but all the initial dollars going in, except for your ongoing expenses once it starts. I mean, how do you feed back to the
Yeah.
corporate structure?
So this is the financing even, right? You know, et
So
cetera.
you get a discount in insurance because you insured two.
Yeah, I negotiated that a little bit with the folks that we did it with because of that reason. You know, like stuff like workers' comp, you estimate anyway on the front end, and they're gonna audit you, so. But yeah, I decided to go LLC. I didn't want to go corporation because if you go C corp, you got double taxation issues. You can elect subchapter S, of course, but then you got some structural issues there too. So, yeah, so I decided the LLC route. I think that makes the most sense. I know everybody does it a little differently. I would not do like a sole proprietorship. I wouldn't do anything like that
No.
because you got liability concerns then.
Yeah. We did an S corp, and then do an LLC for each store.
Yeah, and that may make sense a lot of times. You know, sometimes you do different entities because you want to isolate liabilities.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends on your scenario, I guess.
And I thought like the corporate structure should own all the equipment, because that's an asset, and if something were to go wrong in the store, it'd be a disaster.
Right. Well, and S corp's a pass-through entity, right? So
Right.
it's pass-through
That
to
tax
you.
right through to you, but you
Yes.
get all that equity built up in it, so that you can take money out and you're not being the tax.
I think an LLC or an LLC with an S corp filing is probably the best way to go. You know, you don't want to overcomplicate it, you end up being a full-blown corporation.
No,
because
you don't want
more in taxes.
more
than you get.
taxes.
Even your accountant handling a full corporation is going to charge you a lot more than just handling
Oh, yeah.
a simple LLC, but just simply.
I tend to stay away from courts because of the you know, the regulatory side of it.
Right.
It's just too much, and we want to be kind of free-flowing with management, and LLCs give you that flexibility in most jurisdictions.
Andre brought up a good point with workers' comp. Workers' comp, because I do insurance, obviously, workers' comp is your most expensive line of insurance. You want to make sure any payroll that you're paying yourself is excluded from your workers' comp, right? And it's all based per $100 of payroll. So make sure that if you are on salary, make sure they're not using that and you're excluded, you know, when you go to do your workers' comp insurance.
Right.
A lot of times your agent will ask you, do you want to be included or excluded from the
No,
workers' comp?
they don't pay enough anyway.
You always want to be excluded.
And just hire Amy to manage cash.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's another advice.
Yeah, I'll beat Amy's drum all day long.
Yes.
I mean, because that's just noise you don't want to turn the volume up on.
Yeah.
I mean, just having that peace of mind, and some people say, why does she do your books? She works for corporate. I'm giving corporate my P&L anyways. Right? So I'd rather her just deal with that and turn it over to corporate, and
She knows the
she knows what's up. But yeah, she's really, really good. Now, we pay our bills, so it's a little bit less per month as far as the fee that we pay her. But I would say that's probably the best expense that we initially took on was Amy. It really is. And
That's
it,
something
you know,
that you can always change too. For me, the best thing was, you know what, I'm letting her handle that. I'm always gonna have her to come and do the monthly analysis. She'll come, you know, to you on a monthly basis, or she lives in Montana, but, or over phone, and she'll review, you know, your percent of labor, this is what you need to address that, you know, why are you high on paper costs? To that level of detail. For me, it was easier for her just to do the bills. At the beginning, that's something that at some point we've already talked about. I'll probably take that back as I get more people in place, but she'll always do the analysis and the GL accounts and reporting the monthly reports to Ally for me.
I didn't start spending a lot of time on that until just about 30 days ago. Those first couple months, that was kind of out of sight, out of mind. We're more concerned about perfecting our customer experience than I was, you know, riddling down in the books and putting a lot of rigor on that. There's just so much going on. Now, when we're spending cash, you know, willy-nilly, doing things like that, but it's hard to really kind of get that analysis piece down from the get-go, and that'll come. You know, everybody knows your payroll's going to be higher in the first month or so, and a couple months, and you know, but everything else kind of just comes together. And having that bookkeeper on board really kind of, you know, you knew she was taking care of that stuff.